I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago.
Welcome back to the Homeschool Counseling Network vlog. Today I have back in studio with me Josh Spurlock of My Counselor Online. If you would like to learn more about My Counselor Online, the background, a little bit about Josh's background, and about the services they offer, I'm going to put a card up here and a link in the description box below to our previous blog post where we talked all about the services that My Counselor Online offers and how it can benefit you in your homeschool. But today I get a chance to nerd out and talk with Josh about his proprietary is the best word I can use to describe it, his neuroscience-informed Christian counseling. I'm going to let him share with you what this is, how it can benefit homeschooling families, and how it can also benefit professionals, because there are some CEUs coming for the professional helping community who is listening or watching this right now. So welcome back, Josh, and we're glad to have you in studio.
Well, Kimberly, good to be back. Had so much fun last time, chatting about caring for homeschool families and all the different settings. But I'm really excited to nerd out about Nick. Yeah, neuroscience-informed Christian counseling. This is the model of therapy that's been birthed out of the My Counselor Online clinical team the last 17 years, and between all the therapists on the team, 100,000 or so hours of clinical experience. And really, my background is in biblical languages, and then a master's in counseling, and just nerding out on neuroscience from there. Really, we set out to figure out how do we build a model of care that isn't just like a secular model of therapy with some Bible verses slapped over the top of it, but really a model of care that begins with the premise that the author of Scripture and the author of our nervous system are one and the same.
Yes.
That Jesus breathed the Scriptures into existence, and he designed our nervous system. And so the study of both, the study of either, will not find conflict with each other because they have the same designer, the same author between them. And so we don't have to be afraid of the neuroscience. We don't have to be afraid of leaning into studying Jesus's design and how it works, because it's not going to contradict with the Scriptures, but it is going to inform our understanding of his design and purposes. So that's the starting premise for Nick, and where we began building a model of care from.
That is amazing, because I'll be honest, as a homeschooling family, you're a homeschooling family as well. There seems to be two separate camps of where, or sometimes there's three, in all honesty, where they try to, one where they shun completely, the other one where they, like you said, they take the middle camp where they try to marry the two, but they don't quite do it quite as well. They take traditional science and then they sprinkle a few scriptures on top of it. And then the other one where they make a different sort of hybrid, if you will, a different animal at all, without forgetting that, without remembering that all of this came from God in the beginning. And it doesn't, and science and faith can coexist, should coexist and go together, because all of this was designed by God to begin with.
Yeah, good science is observing and making observations about Jesus's design of the known universe. That the conclusions sometimes that scientists come to, that are influenced by their value systems that they bring to their work. That the science in itself is just an observation of Jesus's design. Now, if you come at the science and the results of that information from the presupposition that there isn't a creator, then you have to explain your findings through an alternative matrix, and that's comes up with conclusions that can be kind of, in my opinion, a little crazy. It's like what seems very apparent here is that this was designed on purpose to work like this, and the idea that it just kind of accidentally fell together like this takes much more faith in my mind than it does to look at a design and go, this was designed by a designer to work like this. But the science itself is, value neutral. Then it's just
Mhm.
observations about the design that's there. And when you pair that with a worldview and a framework that acknowledges the designer and the creator behind that, it makes for a very robust and powerful understanding of how God designed the world to work that can really benefit people. And
No, absolutely. And what you were speaking to earlier is in terms of just statistically thinking of the odds of chance. I mean, I go back to the trauma that was the master's degree when I had to hire a statistician to help me understand my own thesis so I could graduate. But I understood it, knew my statistics by the time I graduated. So that's just that, just the statistical chance of that. It's like
Mhm.
versus an intelligent design versus, let's just throw it out here and see what happens.
Yeah.
So but that is my personal faith and my personal belief.
Mhm.
So going back to your neuroscience informed Christian counseling, I'm looking at what it encompasses. Basically, I'm going to read here from your website. It's an understanding of the human psyche. It's too large to agree, informed by attachment theory, interpersonal
Mhm.
neurobiology, emotion theory, and transformational studies. Now, that's all a bunch of jargon, but can you break that down for clients who might say, oh, okay, this sounds interesting. I love science. This might actually appeal to some people who
Mhm.
who want to, who also, how can this benefit clients? There we go. Break it
Yeah.
down in layman's terms.
Yeah. So, most of us at this day and age, not everybody, but most of us within the Christian faith community accept the value of the scientific study of how the body works when it comes to our liver, our kidneys, our heart, that,
Mm-hmm.
if we have some sort of difficulty with some organ in our body, we trust that the modern scientific study of those things leads to some treatment pathways that are
Right.
valuable and valid for believers to engage. But then we get a little weird when it comes to the brain and the nervous
It's so
system.
true. It's
It's
so
like,
true.
wait a minute. Wait a minute. All that science stuff
Mhm.
is helpful and valuable and useful for my heart and lungs and kidneys but not for the brain and not for the nervous system, which theologically doesn't make a whole lot of sense, doesn't add up, but it's kind of culturally where we get hung up and stuck
Yes.
sometimes within
Yes.
church culture. And so just being able to be theologically consistent and go, actually, the scientific study of Jesus's design of the heart and the lungs and the kidneys, as well as the brain and the nervous system, can produce care pathways that are valuable and helpful to us. And
Mhm.
so when we're struggling with things like anxiety or depression, and when we have kind of kind of character structure concerns that get in the way of our relationships and our ability to connect
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
have healthy bonding in relationship
Mhm.
and navigating conflict, navigating fear, navigating anger, being aware of our emotions and how God designed them to
Mhm.
inform us in our decision making but not control us. Like
Mhm.
all of those different pieces, the scientific study of these things is the study of Jesus's design and can inform us.
Mhm.
So these different um, models, like you named off here, are the different we'll call them groups of scientists. Those that are studying different facets
Mhm.
of human experience and developing
Mhm.
theories about how to be helpful to people, practicing those, gathering data on that, identifying what works and what doesn't work. And it, believe it or not, this will be shocking to you, leads us back to uh, that the scriptures are true and the scriptures are accurate and that God designed us to be relational creatures, that He's a relational God.
Mhm.
He created us as relational beings, and that we are wounded in
Mhm.
relationship and we find healing in relationship, and that knowing how to be intentional about cultivating healing relationships is how we flesh out some of the things that the scriptures talk about, like bearing one another's burdens and, being with each other in the hard things and finding healing through that. Well, the science kind of fleshes out, okay, what does that mean? And we get super nerdy about this stuff. Like, science is always advanced by our capacity to measure things.
Right.
Like, if we're thinking about astronomy, the telescope, we're thinking about like microbiology, the microscope, our ability to look at and see things and measure things is what allows for scientific advancement. And so today we have cool things like functional MRI devices.
Yes.
Most of us know what an MRI device is, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of those big white tubes they load you into.
The donut.
And they're scanning you and all that. So a functional MRI device is like a headset that they can put on your head that instead of putting you in a tube, it does the same thing and letting them look at your brain, but you can actually be moving about and doing things and engaging. And you can actually put two functional MRI devices on two different heads at the same time and see what's happening inside two heads as they interact with each other. And so you can watch it on a screen. And so we can see neurologically what it looks like for us to bear one another's burdens. Like, we can chart out what's happening in the nervous system when that's happening, which then allows us to be intentional about how we go about doing that. Because what we find is that just being with another person and sharing what's going on inside isn't the same as bearing one of the burdens. Like, I can share with you the heavy things that I'm carrying and not feel a connection with you. And I actually feel more alone and more distress. So I feel like I'm there, but I'm alone with it. Like, you're here and you're hearing me, but you're not really with me and don't feel connected. Whereas when we have a connection with each other and there's this empathic, you're here with me, I feel cared for by you, we're in this together, which you can see in right brain to right brain synchrony in the functional MRI, then as I share and process what it is I'm experiencing, it actually changes it in my nervous system, and I'm regulated, and it resolves trauma, and it prevents trauma if I'm experiencing a distressing event that hasn't solidified into trauma yet, and I have the intervention of someone to bear it with me, prevents it from becoming trauma. And we can see this and we can measure it. It's like, it's on the screen. It's crazy.
That is astounding. I just see the implications for working, obviously, in marital relationships, but working with teens, working with, if you want to talk about in terms of diagnoses, working with addiction, understanding addiction, and understanding how to be more supportive in terms of, because we were not created for isolation. We were created for community and for real relationships. God created us to have a relationship with Him and then do with one another. This is astounding. This service, this obviously what you were describing with the functional MRI, that would have to be done in person, obviously, with your offices, but you are creating a training for other professionals that is very soon. This is the part that I get excited at. For all of us who are out there that have to renew that license every 2 years, we have to go through what's known as continuing education units every 2 years. So you are working on making this a continuing education unit, which is very exciting. So tell us a little bit about where you are in that process for professionals who might be interested in this proprietary model.
Yeah, professionals and paraprofessionals, which is super cool. So in developing this model, we built a 2-year postgraduate residency to train the counselors that we hire at My Counselor Online and to develop them in this approach. So there's 18 to 24 months that they spend kind of learning, practicing, being supervised, getting feedback in the use of this model, and developing their proficiency in the competencies of neuroscience-informed Christian counseling and having that demonstrated on tape, which is, different than I can answer questions on a test, but can somebody who is familiar with the model, watch me and go, yes, you're doing it correctly, and it's producing the outcomes that it should be. Right. So we have spent years developing and doing this. And now we're getting to the place where we're ready to launch in an institute format this training and make it more widely available to those in the body who want to continue their education, continue their development in a direction that is both clinically sound, based on the most current neuroscience, but is also deeply built on our faith traditions and on the truths of Scripture. That's not an afterthought, but is an integrated foundational component of conceptualizing how to help folks. So we're in the process right now of formatting that material to make it available for professional counseling community. So those that would have a foundation of a master's or doctoral degree in a mental health related field. But we're also building an on-ramp into the program for folks that maybe come from a ministry background, that are pastoral counselors or in a coaching part of the coaching community, and don't have that background in mental health, but have a desire to know better how to serve and come along folks. And so we're creating, we'll call a NIC Basics program, which is intended to equip folks that don't have that background with the basic understanding of the neuroscience and of mental health in a way that equips them for a form of like mental health coaching or a mental health informed pastoral care in their settings. And if they want to be able to continue on with graduate level continuing education through the Institute, this is breakthrough, because in the kingdom and in the world, this kind of training really isn't accessible. Like the ticket to entry, as you know, for really good high-level institute training is you got to be licensed. You got to have a master's or doctoral degree, and you have to be state licensed, even to be accepted in enrollment into high quality trainings. And so if you are part of the body of Christ and you're serving people day in and day out, which the majority of the counseling that's provided in the world is not provided by professional counselors. The vast majority of counseling provided in the world is provided in community contexts, and a lot of it through the local church in different settings. Well, if you want to up your game, as it were, and kind of learn and grow and develop yourself in that setting, it's not a lot of places you can turn to get that. You can't just like go enroll at one of these neuroscience informed secular institutes because you don't have the credentials they require. We're creating a pathway for folks to, regardless of the setting, whether it's in a professional counseling context or it's in a ministry context, to get a very high level of training and development as part of their continuing education.
That is awesome. Although I don't intend to actually ever go back to direct care service, I just love learning about new things.
Yeah.
I love learning for the sake of learning.
So
people. Yes, and love helping people as well. So I think the more knowledge that you have, it just makes you a better helper, whether you do it for free, like I do, when you do it as, helping connect people to the right counselor who is equipped to help them, or if you are providing that direct service. The more you know, the better equipped you are to serve your community.
yes.
Well, Josh, I've never heard of anything like this before. I'm excited to see this come on board. I'm looking forward to CEU so that I can take this. I even took a CEU on, modulated listening for my son. I'm not an OT, but I took it. My brain melted after 2 days because of all I had to learn about modulated listening music. And our OT kind of laughed about it, but I'm like, well, now I know how it works when my son uses it in therapy, but I'm good. My brain's melted now. But I love learning for the sake of learning. So I think, whether you're going to use this or not, it just makes you a better provider. I can see you connecting with graduate programs to do this, and pastoral counseling programs for this. And what is it? The International Federation for Coaching. You should connect with them for this as well, to really get that out there, because the services that you provide in ministry and in particular are global. or
Hmm.
global, and you're going to, because there's less restrictions on it, because it is a ministry, you are more likely to be able, well, you can reach the masses. You can reach the
Yes.
masses, and that is where it is needed. But this is really exciting. Whether you are nerding out listening to this and are as excited as I am about it, I simply wanted also professionals to know that this is on the way if you want to
Hmm.
learn about it. But I also wanted families to understand the importance of how science is not the enemy.
Yeah.
Science can be married with your faith and can
Hmm.
also actually it informs us, it
Yeah.
benefits us in our relationships, and it benefits us in the counseling relationship and with our families as well. So thank you so much for coming on again and telling us all about your neuroscience informed Christian counseling, your proprietary program. And I'm gonna put some links in the description box below so you can find out more about it. Make sure to go to Josh's website, which is My Counselor Online, specifically /NICC for Nick, if you want to learn more about this / not backslash, sorry. If you want to learn more about the latest developments and when this is going to become available, because I think this is going to really change the face of ministry and of pastoral
Yeah.
counseling for sure.
It's super exciting. Thanks for having me, Kimberly. Fun to hang out with you again and fun to nerd out with you. Got a little neuroscience nerding going on.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm like, I've got to do some refreshers before I take this course when it comes out. I've been in school in a really, really, really long time. But thank you so much for being here and for the services that you provide through My Counselor Online. And we hope to have you on again in the future. So take care.